to Let's Talk, our award-winning podcast series brought to you by Hazel and Betty Ford. I'm your host, William C. Moyers. Thanks for joining us. We've got a lot of thumbs-up followers of these podcasts, and so many of you probably already know the name John Solomon. That's because he's been on the program before, back in 2019. At that time, we talked about his struggles with mental illness and substance use, how he overcame both and turned his life as the frontman musician with the indie rock band Communist Daughter into a career helping people just like him. He's with us again today from Alaska. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
It's good to see you on there. You know, when we were last together several years ago, you announced at that time that you were heading to the Arctic Circle with your wife, Molly, to spend 2 years applying your clinical expertise in service to the native Alaskan population. But it's been 4 or 5 years now. What happened?
Yeah, but I ask myself that every day. We got up here and it was kind of such a magical place, and the community was great, and I think the work was so needed that it felt really good to be working with kind of the background that I had. And so I decided to stay on for another few years, and I was actually making a plan to come back to Minnesota next year, and life happened again. So I'll be staying up here for a little bit longer as well.
Well, you've got to tell our viewers and our listeners what it is you're going to be doing.
So I just accepted the position of CEO of the Alaska Behavioral Health Association. So in a couple months, I'll start as basically the representative of behavioral health in Alaska, working with the legislators, working with the state government, kind of trying to coordinate everybody and get everybody on the same page.
Good luck.
But
So, John, tell us, I know how important your own story, your own experience has been to your journey and to what you're doing today. Can you share that with people to remind us where you come from?
Sure. I like a lot of folks, I was undiagnosed for a long time. I thought I was just an exciting 20-year-old into my 30s. I think I kept being more exciting as everybody else kind of tamped down some of that excitement in their life. So I was a musician. This is before my band Communist Daughter. I was in a rock band, and that kind of rock lifestyle was maybe a little bit more accepted in my brain as what I was doing. So I got into obviously I was drinking a lot. I got into some of the heavier drugs. I was partying, staying up all night, making terrible decisions, and I couldn't figure out why things weren't really working out for me. With a lot of folks that struggle with addiction, it was everything but the alcohol and drugs. And then I ended up through kind of a large failure, being put in jail the night before a big show where I think we were playing with, I don't even remember the bands now. It was some big band. Let's just say that's how old I'm getting now. I don't even remember. But I got arrested the night before, and I was in jail, and opened the paper to a big picture of myself saying I was playing this show, and guy sat down next to me and said, "I don't think you're going to make that show." And I didn't. So I checked into treatment at Hazel and Betty Ford, and through that was just a life-changing experience. It was, so life-changing that I don't think I could have described it to that active addiction, John. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and bipolar 1, and through medication, through treatment, through sobriety, a long but really fruitful path. I got sober, and then I started a new band. That was kind of, I guess the band kind of started all at the same time. And songs that I had written right before I went into treatment started to get pretty popular. And then I spent 10 years, maybe, I think, touring as a musician. But through that, I used a lot of, it became important to me to talk about how sobriety and mental health allowed me to be successful. I think in the arts field, a lot of people think that you have to be tortured, you have to, participate in that kind of lifestyle, and that's how you gain inspiration. And I found it was pretty much the opposite. And so I spent a lot of time advocating for safe spaces, that conversation to be public. So that's kind of where I got to my sobriety. And then the last time we talked, I had actually enrolled in the graduate school at Hazel and Betty Ford because I felt like the more I talked to people about mental health and recovery, more I wanted to know and make sure I was saying things that I could stand behind. And I got my degree from Hazel and Betty Ford Graduate School as a integrated recovery, a master's degree, and that's when I announced on your show that I was uh, taking a hard right turn and going up to a village in Alaska to just do counseling for 2 years is what my plan was. But don't make plans because God has other ideas. So yeah.
And of course, you went up there not solo, but went up there with your wife, Molly, who had been really a critical partner in your journey down and back up. How has she been with the journey?
She's good. She, like I am always expecting her to be the voice of reason in my life. And so when she said that, yeah, this was, I think, a good idea for us, I was shocked. But we got up here and the community's been great. She actually enrolled in a nursing program that they have in Alaska where she can do some of the clinical parts of nursing in these remote in the rural hospital here. There's 17-bed kind of stabilization hospital in our village. And so she does her clinicals there. She's halfway through the program.
What's it like providing services in a community like Alaska? I mean, never mind the distance from population centers. There's certainly a dynamic in terms of diversity. You're in the minority there. You found quality treatment at Hazel and Betty Ford. You got to go to a good graduate school. You don't have those resources up there.
Yeah, I think that's, that was one of the reasons I felt a calling to come up here. That it's where I live, it's about 85% Native Alaskan. It's the Inupiat. And in the villages, which this is a hub village in the Northwest Arctic, and there's villages that are further inland, and that's about 95% Native Alaskan. And we're not on a road system, so everything that is here has to be either barged here in the 1 to 2 months that there isn't ice, or flown in. And so this resources are very scarce, and mental health care, addiction care, it's as far out as you can get. So I really felt like it was important for me to bring what I learned at Hazel and Betty Ford and see if I could be some of the farthest outreaches of Hazel and Betty Ford. So it's been a great experience.
What do you go to the patients and the clients, or do they come to you?
Well, it's been interesting since I was up here. So I started as a therapist, and for the first 9 months, I was flying into villages. So you just take a backpack, sleeping bag, a laptop, and you fly into a village. You sleep at the health clinic there. Usually there's like a couple couple rooms. They have what they call CHAPs, which are community health aides. They're kind of like EMTs that live. They're from the village, and so you have to fly in on bush planes. You stay a few days. You see people in the community. It's kind of like the one-stop shop of addiction, mental health. But then COVID happened, and with the telehealth flexibilities that came through, we were really able to pivot quickly into basically a telephone-based program. And up here, it was very important because what we saw was an 800% increase in participation in substance use. Yeah, and it's not that there was 800% more people, it was just that people were waiting to get care. And, you talk about like, "Oh, I think there was a lot of stigma about telehealth and, "Oh, is it as good? Is it," like, "It's not gonna be the same." But up here, it was they didn't have care, So, with telehealth, it's been a game changer up here. It's been astronomical improvement in the region.
So, from the adversity of the pandemic came this opportunity to apply telehealth, virtual care, into communities that might not have been able to ever get those kinds of services before. So, it's really worked out, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, so much it worked out so much that, the state, the like, really started to tap, Manelic, which is the organization that I work for currently. And I did a lot of talking to state, legislators, the Division of Behavioral Health, a lot of other tribal organizations, explaining, like, how we were able to do things here. And, it was such a success that the legislators pushed forward a telehealth bill before, the rest of the country. Alaska signed a bill cementing telehealth as a viable delivery. Medicaid will pay for telehealth, and we're talking telephone telehealth. Um, you can call in to your substance use groups. You can call into your counselor, and it's just been an astronomical change here. And so it was neat to have a very rural community uh, have such an impact on the rest of the state.
We've only got a couple more minutes before we've got to go, but let me ask you a few things, John. Are you nervous about being the CEO of an organization versus being down in the trenches, interacting with the patients, providing care to your clients?
It's funny because when they asked me, I thought that they had maybe mistaken me for somebody else. Because I was like, I don't know if are you sure you're supposed to talk to me about this? But I think the work that I did with explaining telehealth, and as a musician, a lot of times you're telling a story, and I feel like that's what I will be doing as the CEO of the Alaska Behavioral Health Association. It's really like taking the concerns and taking the needs of all of the behavioral health providers of Alaska and helping to tell that story so we can move the industry forward. So I think my nervousness has calmed down. It will be hard to not have somebody else that I can blame if things go south.
So let's keep on that theme of telling a story and telling your story, and let's get a little bit more personal again. You've shared what you've overcome in terms of mental health challenges and substance use. You're in a higher stress job soon when you take the CEO position. You're in a part of the world where it's not easy to get around, and you can't take for granted some of what we can take for granted in the lower 48. How do you take care of yourself these days, John?
I do a lot of. It helps that I'm really family oriented. So much so that my wife and I, before we had struggles with fertility, and so we signed up as foster parents, and I think that's been a real blessing in our life, was to have that it was always, it felt like every day, every morning, every sleepless night was also like service. And so really service has been a way that I've been able to feel, uh, I just, I feel like I'm always improving. I feel like I get back everything from everything I give. And, it's not like you talk about altruism, and it's definitely not altruistic. It's I receive from doing this service. And so, being a foster parent, being really family oriented and community oriented up here, you have to make your community. You can't, there is nothing, I mean, yeah, there is not a built-in thing to do up here. So you connect with everybody, and you make your own fun up here. And so that's been interesting. It forces you to be more extroverted. Um, yeah. So I think that's been a big uh help for me. It's also, I've been bringing up other Hazel and Betty Ford folks, and so it's almost like we're building our own little recovery community here. So that's been really great.
And you've talked about your role as a foster parent, but you also are a father of you and Molly have a big announcement.
Yeah, a very new baby. We like, as they told us when we started fostering, and they had found out that we had fertility issues. They were like, well, for some reason, one of the best treatments for fertility issues is fostering, because suddenly you'll have a baby. And and so that's what we got pregnant after one of our foster kids that we had for a long time went home. We were very, it's a bittersweet kind of thing, where we were really happy that they got reunited, but we were in our own kind of depression, but found out we were pregnant, and now I've got a 21-day-old son that is already challenging me in a whole new way.
What's his name?
Henry Patrick Solomon.
Henry's a good name. My oldest is a Henry, so
Oh, there you go.
there we
Yeah.
go. So before we go, John, you've got to update us and got to update your fans on your music. What role is music playing in your journey these days?
It's been nice to kind of have a break from music. It's wild to see all my friends being very successful. Their careers have taken them in great places, but I feel very comfortable devoting my life to this. And I know now that music is actually kind of coming back. I'm falling in love with music again. It was a career for a long time, that now I've been able to fall in love again, and I've actually started playing again, which is, I'm not promising anything, but it is happening.
And do you use your music at all in what you do down in the trenches therapeutically?
Up here, it's actually, I think it's such a rare thing to have music, and so we have started to talk about trying to bring musical instruments into the villages. And then there's drumming that they do here, which it was such a powerful, incredible thing to be a part of. Um, uh, and so there is music, there is rhythm, there is these things that are protective, recovery based things. Like, that's a lot of what we're doing, is trying to find healthy things that can be done. And so that's been part of the work up here. That's been exciting.
Well, it's exciting to catch up with you again. We can't wait another 4 or 5 years to do it. But John Solomon, thank you so much for carrying the message, for taking your own personal experience and your professional experience and plugging it into that community of need there in Alaska. And we hope that you will, stay in touch with us and keep doing the good work that you're doing. And don't be afraid to ask for Hazel and Betty Ford's help.
Yeah, thank you very much. I know I will always be tapping Hazel and Betty Ford. So I'm very proud to be a patient and then a student of Hazel and Betty Ford.
And we're proud that you are. John Solomon, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, too, for joining us for another edition of Let's Talk. We'll see you again soon.